This is the Schlage Sense Pro. It's the latest smart lock from Schlage. It supports Matter over Thread, has a built-in digital keypad, and it is now the second lock that supports Ultra Wideband unlocking. So you don't even have to get your device out and tap it to unlock. It will just unlock as you approach. It is also one of the most expensive locks you can buy at $400. But there's some key differences to the Aqara U400, which I reviewed before, the only other Ultra Wideband smart lock you can get right now. I'll cover installation, setting it up in the Apple Home app, the few features you do need the actual Schlage app for, and how to decide what smart lock is best for you, if you have to go all the way up to $400 or if there's a cheaper option. In the box, you get everything you need to install the Sense Pro: screws, strike plate, deadbolt. But to get the installation instructions, you do have to scan the QR code and go to the website. Now, previously on this door, I had the Level Lock Pro, and there's been some shakeup with the parent company of Level Lock, Aqara, so a little bit unknown where Level Lock is going to be going in the future. I also had some issues with Level Lock because the deadbolt is a perfect circle, and in some door jams, I would have to push the door a little bit to get it to lock cleanly, so I couldn't really lock it from the phone. More on that in a second. Installing the Schlage Sense Pro, super easy and fast. I actually recorded some on my Meta glasses that I'll be reviewing here on the channel soon, so get subscribed. I have lots of thoughts on those. But installation was very easy, it's secure, and one of the best parts, at least for my home, is the deadbolt has those flattened left and right edge sides, so if the perfectly round deadbolts were a little too large in your doors before, this one might work way better. And thankfully, no adjustment to the door is needed. I can lock and unlock it without having to touch it at all. After getting it installed, setup is super fast. Again, this is Matter over Thread, so connecting it to the Apple Home app, which I did directly. I didn't even have the Schlage app installed at first. Added very quickly, was able to bring in all my PIN codes that were in my Apple Home app, set up home key, the Ultra Wideband unlock. Everything went smoothly and it was ready to go. Now, before we get to the unlocking experience, a few key differences between this and the Aqara U400 and other home key locks. There is no physical key option. So if you like having that backup physical key, that's not available here. Also, no fingerprint sensor. The Aqara U400 has both of those, physical key and fingerprint unlock. So if that's a big deal to you, I'll have some other options I'm going to suggest at the end of this video. Also, the Schlage Sense Pro takes 4 AA batteries, where the Aqara U400 actually had a rechargeable USB-C battery. I'll have to follow up after several months to see how the battery life is, but Schlage does pretty well with battery life. There is a USB-C port at the bottom of the Sense Pro, so if the batteries die, you can plug in a portable power bank and then you have that emergency unlock so you can still get in the house. And a little comparison on the physical differences. The Sense Pro, way more sleek on the outside. It's a smaller footprint because it doesn't have that fingerprint sensor or physical key. And frankly, I really like the look of it on the outside of the house. Inside, the deadbolt is fairly large, like most smart locks, because it's holding those 4 AA batteries plus all the things to pair. And no other smart lock looks as good as the Level Lock series because it just looks like a normal door lock, not this big thing on the back of the door, but it doesn't really bother me. Now, when it comes to the unlock experience for the Sense Pro, it is incredible, and I will say beats the Aqara U400. This thing is super fast to unlock, whether you're using home key where you would tap your Apple Watch or your iPhone, it does that super fast. Unlocking on approach, consistent, fast. You can even choose what direction on approach it will unlock, and we'll get more into the app settings in a moment. And of course, you can unlock with the passcode as well. Honestly, this thing is so fast, even when I try to lock it manually here on the outside, it usually unlocks several seconds later because my devices are just nearby. But whether you want that Ultra Wideband unlock or you want to be able to tap your Apple Watch or your iPhone, it is extremely solid on the unlocking experience. And that Ultra Wideband is smart enough not to unlock when you're on the inside. So I can go all the way up to it, even touch my Apple Watch to it, and it is not going to unlock as long as you're on this side of the door. Now, I've been using the Aqara U400 for the past several months, and I'll say that is still solid. It is consistent. It works with the Ultra Wideband or tapping your phone or your watch. But given side by side, I think the Schlage is a little faster. Let's also test from the home app. So here's the unlock speed, tapping the card here in the home app. Same way to unlock it, let me tap the card, couple seconds, and it unlocks. When it comes to controlling it with the actual home app, the U400 might beat it a little bit on speed, but you're probably not doing that too often. Most likely unlocking with home key or the Ultra Wideband, and I think the Schlage is a little faster at that. Now, as I mentioned before, I set this up directly in the home app, didn't even have the Schlage app installed, so if you want to use it that way, you can. You get the battery level. Here's where you can change the approach direction setting if you want it to unlock when you approach from the left, right, and the front is selected by default. You can't really change that. You can also manage access. Of course, everyone in your Apple Home will be able to unlock it with home key, and you can create separate PIN codes that are specifically for guests. I'll show you that more in a moment. And one feature that sometimes the websites say you need the Schlage or Aqara app for is the automatic lock. Well, that's not the case. You can have this automatically lock even after 30 minutes of it being unlocked. directly here in the Home app. You don't need the Schlage or Aqara app for those kinds of settings. Now, if you wanted to add a guest PIN code or give someone else access to the lock, you can go to your home settings, go down to locks here. And if you wanted to give someone scheduled access to a lock, you can go down to the guests and then invite people. Here you can choose a resident. You can invite people to have access at a certain time of day or at a set schedule. And you can create PIN codes that apply to one or all the locks, and then just give that PIN code to someone. And then you can delete it later. So you don't need to invite someone via email just to have a PIN code on the door lock that someone else can access. Now, unfortunately, like with a lot of other smart locks, you do need to download and set up the Schlage app for a few key settings. Now, you can give the Schlage app access to your home data, so you don't need to pair the lock again. Once it's added to your home, you will see it appear here in the Schlage app after a few minutes, so there's not a second setup process. Now, for some of the settings, you have to hit the 3 dots, then go to Lock Settings. Now, one setting I wish was off by default for all these smart locks is any beeping or sounds that the lock makes. This is on by default, and if you want to turn that beep off, you have to use the Schlage app. There's also an interior unlocked light, so if you want to see visually that the door is unlocked from a distance, that you'll need the Schlage app for as well. And there's a built-in alarm, so if there might be forced entry or even door movement, the Schlage lock can detect that. If you want to adjust any of those settings or turn on or off that built-in alarm, you do need the Schlage app for that as well. And finally, being an ultra wideband lock, Schlage has some specific entrance modes where if you want to turn off that intuitive mode where it unlocks as you approach, you can instead go to touch mode where you don't have to actually touch your device or even put in your PIN code, but if you want to have to touch the lock when your devices are near it rather than it unlocking automatically, you can change that to touch mode, and you can also put on delay mode where it will unlock 3 seconds after a user approaches. These modes are specific to Schlage. This is not something available with the Aqara lock, and you do need the Schlage app specifically to adjust these settings. Now, if you don't care to adjust any of those settings, you don't need the Schlage app. You can just use the Home app, but I chose to download and add it anyways. A couple other differences compared to the Aqara U400. This actually has Wi-Fi backup, not just Matter over Thread. Again, if you have Apple TVs and HomePods around, it should be connecting via Thread anyway, so the Wi-Fi is just a backup. All right, now a couple questions from social media about the lock. Brian asked about no biometrics, and that is correct. There's no fingerprint sensor on the Sense Pro. Then also, Hero Report asked, how close do you or your phone need to be for it to detect your intent? Now, I talked about this in my U400 video, but the faster you approach the door, the farther away it will unlock. And I will try to attempt this without hurting myself here on the patio, but if you're running at the door at a fast pace, it will actually unlock sooner, meaning you can be farther away. As opposed to slowly walking up to the door, it will unlock later or slower. So the answer to that is it depends, but on just a normal walking up to the door, couple feet away and it's going to unlock. Apple Watch or iPhone. The Sense Pro is great at detecting both of those devices. I did find if I didn't have my iPhone with me and was just using my Apple Watch, that the Sense Pro was a little better at detecting and unlocking than the U400. So if you're often with just your Apple Watch, where you're like going for a walk and then coming home and you didn't have your phone with you, I think the Sense Pro is better at watch detection. Robbie asked, interested if it notifies you when there's a key override. Again, there's no physical key or key override, but you do get notifications even if it's locked or unlocked manually from the inside. You'll see all those notifications pop up. And James asked, can I share with neighbors if I'm out of town and they are watching the house, like can I within Code Plus? Does it allow the ultra wideband capability? Again, you can invite someone in the Home app, give them temporary access as a guest, and they can still use Home Key Ultra Wideband, or if you just want to give them a PIN code, you can do all of that in the Home app. Also, you can go to the Manage Access area in the Schlage app, but it's just going to kick you over to the Apple Home app because that's where I set it up. And if you wanted to give someone like your neighbor access, you would go to the Lock Settings, Guests, and then invite someone. Now, Greg, maker of the great app Drafts, actually a question about the name, namely Schlage. So I did some research where that came from. The company is actually named after its founder, Walter Schlage, a German immigrant who started the Schlage Lock Company in San Francisco in 1920. The surname Schlage is German and traces back to the verb schlagen, meaning to strike or to hit. Also, funny tidbit, the strike plate, which is the part in the door where the deadbolt actually goes into, actually named for Walter's family name. Also, while it's often pronounced Schlage, the actual German rendering is more like Schlage, and so maybe that's how I need to say it from now on. Schlage. So, is the Schlage Sense Pro for you? Well, compared to the Aqara U400, it is more expensive, doesn't have a fingerprint reader or a physical key. So if those things are important to you, I would really look at the Aqara U400. It's been great for several months. Again, you can watch my whole review if you scan this QR code, and I'll put that link in the YouTube and down below as well. If you want a more svelte look of your smart lock on the outside, maybe you specifically don't want a physical key so it can't be picked, and you don't mind the AA batteries, the Schlage Sense Pro I think is one of the best unlocking experiences. It is super fast, and while both of those smart locks are Matter over Thread, this one has that Wi-Fi backup if you feel like your Thread network might not be robust enough. But again, it is $400. Now there are some other great smart locks, and if you don't care for ultra wideband, meaning you're fine just tapping your device to the lock, and budget is really your priority, I would take a look at the Thorbolt locks. These are specifically Apple Home only, but they use Thread, and you can get the Thorbolt X3 for only $100. $100, fingerprint unlock, no keypad, but it uses home key. There's a keypad version for only $10 or $20 more. That's the Thorbolt X1. Aqara also has some cheaper locks like the U100 for $150 or the U50. Both of those use home key, but they're not Thread. And if you're going to get a new smart lock today, I would really look at getting one that's Thread enabled for the best connectivity, best battery life, all of that. And one other key feature, both the Aqara U400 and the Schlage Sense Pro have Aliro, which means if you have multiple smart home ecosystems in your home, maybe your partner or spouse has a Google device and you have an iPhone, with a future update, you'll be able to have it set up for both home ecosystems, so both the Android device and your iPhone can unlock it at once. Previously, a lot of smart locks, it was either one or the other. You had to set it up for Apple Home or Google Home. But the Schlage Sense Pro and the Aqara U400 both have Aliro. Coming in a future update, you'll be able to set it up across ecosystems. Now, I bought the Sense Pro. They did not send it to me, so I have to decide whether to keep it, but that's a yes for me. One, because it works with this door and I don't have to push it or mess with it. It's going to lock and unlock all by itself, and that was kind of a huge deal for me. I love the ultra wideband. I don't need a physical key or fingerprint sensor here. And the one door in my house that I've never put a smart lock on is my front door. I just haven't found one that I think will look nice, and we don't usually come in that way anyway, so it's not been a big deal. But if I were to put a smart lock on my front door, I think I would put the Schlage Sense Pro. Now, I'm not ready right now to spend another $400 for a second one of these, but maybe there's a sale on Amazon and I might get it maybe around Black Friday. But if you want to get the Sense Pro, the U400, or some of the cheaper Apple home key locks, I'll put affiliate Amazon links down in the video description. Some of them are on sales right now, even after Prime Day or wherever you see this. And if you just want the most top of the line, no fingerprint sensor, no physical key, ultra wideband smart lock for Apple Home, I do think the Sense Pro now wins that top-of-the-line model. As far as reliability and speed, especially with the Apple Watch specifically, I think the Sense Pro is great, but the U400 is still a great option and lots of cheaper options out there if ultra-wideband isn't for you. So if you have any other questions, let me know down in the comments. Get subscribed and hit that like button. Any new smart locks, Apple Home devices coming out, I'll be covering it right here. Maybe we'll get a new Apple TV or maybe even HomePod with a screen in the fall, and you know I'll be covering that right here on the channel. I'll put a couple other videos right here that I think you'll really enjoy. 5 things I wish I upgraded sooner in my smart home. And if you want to see a full tour of every smart home device I have, I'll put that video right here. I update that every year, and there actually have been a lot of changes, so that'll be coming in the fall, closer to the end of the year, but I like doing that tour annually. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.